everyone, welcome to 100 Women of Color in Jobs Challenge. And this is the very first live stream for week one. And today we'll be talking about how to craft a CV that speaks powerfully, and especially for women of color. And yeah, I'm gonna wait for about a minute or so. By the way, this live stream was supposed to be 8 o'clock, and we have some technical glitches. I'm sorry about that. I'll try to keep the time. I hate not keeping the time, but anyways, yeah, that was it. So we'll start in about a minute. That is 8:07, and yeah, we'll be good to go. Also, let me give a brief intro of what 100 Women of Color in Jobs challenge is. So, this is a 90 days challenge just to ensure that we have about 100 women of color in jobs, at least 100 women of color in jobs, and it's going to last for 90 days. If you've not seen the intro video, you might as well just go. However, I'm going to be streaming live every week till the end of the challenge, which will be we have July, August, and September. And in that September, please, if you can't hear me, you can indicate. If you're having issues with the voice, let me know. But yeah, I got a thumbs up that that's working. Anyway, so um, even if this is targeted at women of color, if you're also still in the job market, this can be very, very helpful. Um, okay, so yeah, we are done with the 1 minute wait. Let's get started. So, why are so many brilliant women of color overlooked in job searches? Because their CV sometimes does not always communicate impact. And this is not due to the lack of skill, but because we seem to have been conditioned to be modest or be vague or be overly humble. I'm a woman of faith and I believe so much in humility, but there are certain humility that is called false humility. So this is the kind of humility that you're not owning what you've done or what you normally would do. And I don't believe in that. You need to be able to articulate clearly your impact and your work. So let me give an example. For instance, you have a statement like I led marketing campaign for product launch. That is very vague. Now compare to a statement like I led marketing campaign that increased new sign-ups by, let's say, 48% in 3 months and contributing to about 120k dollars or pounds if you're in the UK in revenue. Do you see the difference, right? One tells a story and the other one shows exact impacts. And this is the kind of things you want to be saying on your CV. So now I'm going to touch on some of the common pitfalls that women of color face on their CVs. One of it is undervaluing achievement. So we often write task instead of results because we weren't taught to like quantify success, like I mentioned earlier. So you're like just saying, oh, this is what I did, this is what I did, rather than saying that you're supposed to be quantifying your success in numbers. That's one pitfall. The second pitfall would be the fear of bragging. So yeah, there's this cultural layer to this. If you work with other people from different races, like I do, you notice this vast differences between people of color and people that are not necessarily identified as people of color, and they have like this approach to talking about their work that is almost like bragging in our minds, but it's not necessarily bragging. It's just like owning what you've worked on. Let's be quite honest. Sometimes it's bragging, but there's a very healthy balance that you need to fit into. So there's a cultural layer to this, and many of us were probably raised to keep our heads down and just let the work speak for itself. But honestly, recruiters can't guess your excellence. You don't expect recruiters to like guess your excellence, so this is not going to work. You need to be able to speak confidently of the work that you're doing. And then the next common pitfall that I'd like to touch on is no star framework being used. So when we say star, I'm going to break down what star framework means, but we describe what we did, but not why it mattered. Anyway, so I'm going to go to the next section, which is what makes a strong CV, especially in this challenge. So number one, you're going to be using the star method, and the star method to write each bullet point. I think the first one will be situation. So you're going to talk about what the context is, what exactly are you talking about, and then what context was the company at when you were doing this. And after that, you're also going to be talking about what the task was, what were you responsible for, right? A lot of people make a mistake of always saying we. There might be a project that is a group project, but at the same time, there has to be something that you're responsible for, which again is why you need to fight for your right to be responsible for something within a project. The third one will be the action. So, what did you actually do? So, yeah, remember there's the situation, there's the task, and then there's the action. So, you need to communicate what you did using the STAR method. And the final R is results. So, what changed because of this action? Do you understand? For example, don't say that I managed team social media pages. Rather, talk like I revamped the content strategy. Um, I revamped the content strategy, that's action, for Instagram and LinkedIn, that is task, and then growing engagement by 130% in 6 months, that is result during a campaign. And then reposition your brand, just to reposition your brand. So that is like the situation. So you're explaining using the star method. I hope I was really clear in that. So you remember when you're writing your CV, you're using the star method, which is what situation, what was the context, what is the task you worked on or you were responsible for, what was the action, and what did you actually do. So, and the result is what's changed just because of you. And then the number two point of this will be that quantity even without add numbers. Do you understand? If you're following, please just say yes or something. So I'm on the point of what makes a strong CV, especially in this challenge. So quantify even without add numbers. So there are times where you are in a role where there are no real numbers and you can't exactly use numbers for your metrics, but you can still imply scale. Do you get what I mean? You can imply scale, you can imply frequency, or just scope. And an example would be that you probably supported three cross functional teams on a bi weekly sprint cadence. And you can also say, instead of saying that, you can say you improve the team delivery, right? Another example is you improve the team delivery by introducing a new project workflow that was adopted company wide. So these are some of the impacts that you drove, but it's not necessarily number driven, but at the same time, you can still quantify it. And then the third one will be to translate your invisible labor into tangible skills. Um, this is very fun because a lot of people actually do invisible labor, especially women of color. So you guys carry emotional, cultural, community building labor, and these actually count. Best believe I didn't used to know that this count. I just wanted to, do something good for the team. But example of how to, speak on this would be that you initiated a mentorship circle, for instance, for about, let's say, 10 junior staff. I mean, your company has to be that big for you to have 10 junior staff, but This is an example, right? So you initiated mentorship circle for 10 junior staff, contributing to about 25% improvement in your new project workflow, and then adopted company wide again, or you just improved it in retention and morale for the department. So it helps to make people more driven to do more based off of this your community work or your invisible labor. So yeah, that is that is invisible labor. So I'm now going to go through section by section composition of a strong CV. What does that entail? Number one, that would be the header. So for the header, there should be clean, no photos, right? Just use a professional email. LinkedIn link is optional, but I prefer it personally because people or recruiters like to check you out themselves. So you need to have like, don't add your pictures, you don't have to. And then you don't also need to add, some people like add weird things like where they're from, their age and all that stuff. You don't need that on your CV. Then the next one will be a professional summary. This is usually about 3 to 4 lines. It's just going to tell you about who you are and what you're great at. Like these are the questions that summary would answer. What kind of opportunity you are seeking, and then mention value or mission if aligned with the job. So let me read an example that I wrote down. It says that experienced customer success specialist with 5 plus years that is driving user engagement and retention across SaaS platforms. So known for translating complex tech into real human value, and then passionate about inclusive digital experiences and helping mission-led companies scale with empathy. So it sounds like a lot of grammar, but if you're a recruiter, you can break this down and understand fully what this person's core strength is, how long have they been in this role, what are some of their results, and what is their expertise, all in one summary. So the next one will be you need to show on the CV what your core skill or competencies are, right? So bullet point or keywords list tailored to the job. You need to figure out, you need to read, actually, you need to read the job description. You can't just look for a job description that is talking about the roles that you want, then tailor your CV based off of that. Have like tailored keyword that is relating to what you do and exactly what the job is requiring. And also include soft and hard skills. So one of the examples of these skills could be stakeholder management or engagement. And if you're talking about hard skills, like maybe you're a data analyst, you can be talking about SQL. And yeah, for some, depending on the role you're going for, you might be talking about DEI facilitation and etc. The next one will be the next section. Remember, a section by section composition of a strong CV. The first one was header, the second one was professional summary, the third one was the core skill or competence, and then the fourth section will be professional experience. So again, don't forget to use the star based bullet point, and then 2 to 5 bullet points per job. Don't make it too cumbersome. Don't have CVs about 4 or 5 pages. I really would just tilt towards 3 pages in everything. So you want it to be like really hitting the mark in those 2 to 5 bullet points per job. And then focus on the results, not the responsibilities. Again, don't forget that the result is not is all that matters in this game. You need to be very definite about your results. So next, I'm now going to be moving on to the next section, which is education and certification. So you need to also optionally add scholarships, like maybe you want a scholarship in school. I mean, why not? Or society that shows that you are a leader and you've exemplified good leadership or excellence. And then finally, you need to add, if you have education, like most women of color that I see do have education, but depending on the kind of roles you're applying for, there are times when you actually all that counts is your experience, not necessarily education, if you get what I mean. So what I'm saying is some roles do not necessarily need you for BSc, it's not a requirement. It's more like you have an experience and you have the skills, and some are even self-taught. So yeah. So finally, you need to add the optional leadership, volunteering, advocacy, and women of color do powerful work outside of work, outside of the 9 to 5 all the time. So don't erase this. It actually matters. It shows that you care and you're intentional about things. Anyway, so on to my final notes. So don't just write what you did, write what's changed because you did it. So don't just say, oh, this is what I did. No, you need to link it back to the difference that this made. This challenge isn't just about getting 100 women into jobs, it's also about helping them see themselves as the kind of candidate who belongs at the table and get paid what they are worth. This is where I'm going to wrap up. Let me see how long that takes. That's about 20 minutes, which is not bad. If you have any questions, you can ask in the comment section. If you're live, you can also shoot. And then also, for the women of the 100 women of color that are currently running with this challenge, you can also send a mail, and the other medium to reach out, and let's just get talking. So I hope I've been able to cover it. And the bonus point I wanted to touch on today is the cultural bragging. So the cultural bragging thing is a bias. It's a bias, right? And you need to let it go. Let it go. And that means that you can't be too cautious. Like, don't overthink things. Just own it. Just be yourself. Just speak as you intend to speak. Own the work that you've done. And most especially when these recruiters are asking you about your CV, you need to be able to speak articulately as to what you've done and how you've done it. What that means is, even if you're rewriting your CV based off of feedbacks, based off of what do I say now? Based off of job description, you need to be acquainted with what your CV says. If that makes sense, you can't just write so many words and then when you get on a call or get in a room for the interview, you cannot say exactly what is on your CV. Don't overstretch it, don't overplay yourself, and don't underplay yourself. In fact, it's better to overplay than to underplay it, to be honest. But yeah, this is where I'm going to call it a night for today's session, and I hope this helps someone. Again, don't forget to drop your comment, don't forget to like and also share with people. And I'll see you next week on Friday by 8 p.m. again. So take care and bye.